In the quiet town of Ridgewood, there lived a man named Ethan Cole. Unlike most men, Ethan was small in stature and had a youthful face. To the people of Ridgewood, he looked like a high school student. But in reality, Ethan was a federal agent, working undercover to keep the town safe. He lived a quiet, unassuming life, always watching, always prepared. Ethan had moved to Ridgewood 5 years ago, blending in as an ordinary resident. Most people saw him as a polite but quiet young man who kept to himself. They had no idea that behind that unassuming exterior was a highly trained agent tasked with keeping an eye on criminal activities in the region. He spent years gathering intelligence, waiting for the right moment to strike against the criminal underbelly of Ridgewood. One morning, Ethan walked into Greenfield Market, the town's busiest grocery store. He picked up a cup of coffee and strolled through the aisles when something caught his attention. 2 men, Derek and Troy. These 2 were well-known troublemakers. They intimidated shop owners, harassed innocent people, and believed they were untouchable. Ethan had observed their actions before, but had yet to intervene. Today, however, they crossed a line. Ethan noticed them cornering an elderly man near the back of the store. The old man clutched his wallet as Derek and Troy loomed over him. Nobody dared to step in. Ethan had seen enough. Ethan took a breath and walked toward them. "I think you should stop," he said calmly. Derek and Troy turned to face him. Seeing his small frame, they smirked. "And what are you going to do about it, kid?" Troy sneered. Ethan didn't respond. He simply observed, waiting for the right moment. Troy, irritated by his silence, lunged forward. But Ethan sidestepped with ease. Derek swung a fist, but in one swift motion, Ethan grabbed his arm and flipped him onto the ground. Troy barely had time to react before Ethan locked his wrist and forced him down as well. The store fell into stunned silence. Shoppers watched in disbelief. Then, the doors burst open. 2 police officers stormed in, Officer Blake and Officer Ryan. "Hands up!" Blake shouted. Ethan remained still, his expression unreadable. "You're under arrest for assault," Ryan added. Before Ethan could explain, they cuffed him. Troy and Derek sat on the floor, pretending to be victims. "You didn't even ask what happened," Ethan said, his voice calm. "Save it for the station," Blake replied. Ethan sighed. He knew the truth would come out. It always did. News of the arrest spread fast. The people of Ridgewood whispered among themselves. Who was this so-called kid? And why had he fought 2 grown men so effortlessly? The town divided into 2 camps, those who believed in Ethan's innocence and those who thought he was just another delinquent. At the courthouse, Judge Calloway peered at Ethan from behind his glasses. "Mr. Cole," he said, "you may defend yourself." Ethan stood up slowly. His hand slipped into his coat pocket. The room fell silent. A second later, he pulled out a golden FBI badge. The crowd gasped. "I am Agent Ethan Cole," he stated. "I've been working undercover in this town for 5 years." Murmurs filled the room. The judge blinked, rereading the case files. The officers exchanged uneasy glances. A long pause stretched across the courtroom. Then, the judge sighed. "It seems we've made a terrible mistake," he admitted. "Agent Cole, you're free to go." Troy and Derek turned pale. Their smug expressions faded as they realized their lies had been exposed. The courtroom filled with whispers, some ashamed of their hasty judgment. But it wasn't over yet. Justice is served. Once Ethan was released, he didn't leave immediately. Instead, he turned to Judge Calloway. "Your Honor, these 2 have been terrorizing this town for years. I have evidence, videos, testimonies, and proof of their extortion schemes." The judge leaned forward, interested. Ethan handed over a small flash drive containing months of surveillance footage. The courtroom watched as the judge examined the files. His face grew serious. "Officers," the judge finally said, "arrest Derek and Troy." The 2 men panicked as the cuffs clicked around their wrists. This time, there was no escaping justice. As Ethan walked out of the courthouse, the people of Ridgewood watched him with new respect. The town had learned a lesson: not to judge a person by their appearance. He was no longer just a small man. He was their protector. And in that moment, justice had finally been served. Ethan returned to his quiet life, but he knew his job was far from over. The town still had shadows lurking beneath its peaceful surface. More criminals operated behind closed doors, and Ethan had spent years gathering intelligence on them. One evening, as he walked down Ridgewood's dimly lit streets, his phone buzzed. A message flashed across the screen. "We need to talk." "What need I?"